Welcome to another episode of More Than Dice. I'm Gonzo.
I'm not Kathy. Still.
John is off today. He decided to take some time off and get some things done. And so it's just going to be Jim and I, aka James Wappel. If I can get one of my mods to give a shout out to his channel, that would be greatly appreciated. Jim is showing off some of his awesome models, so flaunting in our face because he's damn fucking good at his job. So today we're going to be talking about OSL, how to incorporate it, how to do it, how to put it on a model, how to get things ready. And before we do anything, look what I found. Look what I found. I was walking out of someone's house and I found this cool piece of bark. And I was like, yep, taking that home. So I channeled Mr. James Wappel and I was like, yep, taking this. Got to let it dry out and everything. I got a project coming up that I'm going to be, I want to make a very cool dioramic base, but I'm actually going to be using not that, possibly, because this week I got the cool corkboard. I got the AKA James Wappel brown corkboard that we were showing. I couldn't find it locally for any reason, so I had to get it off of Amazon, which kind of irked me. So just down that. Found basing materials is the best, especially when it's just like laying on the sidewalk. It was like, caught my eye. I was like, ooh, grab it, got it, going. But before we get started, we're going to talk. We got to give a shout out to all of our sponsors. Guys, a lot of our sponsors are doing some major promotions right now and trying to get ready because of summer months and conventions are coming up. So they're trying to get extra cash and everything going. Make sure you check out Turbo Dork. Turbo Dork does some great metallic paints and color shifting paints. We will be giving away a gift certificate to them soon, $50. They will also be at Warfare Weekend and selling their paints and have a lot of cool things and new stuff for everybody. We want to thank Midnight Heroes. They are doing a big summer sale right now. With our 10% off and their summer sale, you can get almost everything 50% off on their store, which you can get sets of paints. You can also get chibi miniatures, and he's got new lines of miniatures coming out that he's 3D printing, which would be really cool to see. Once we get it, he told me he was sending us some miniatures to show off and paint up, so we'll be seeing those pretty soon. We want to give a shout out to Muse on Minis for hosting our channel. Make sure you check them out because they are up and rolling hardcore right now with a lot of cool things going on in their repertoire, best way to put it, because convention season is hitting hard right now. So check them out. Make sure you use the code MoreThanDice. Who did I miss? Conquest. Don't forget Parabellum War Games. They just released their First Blood Rules 2.0, which is their skirmish version of Conquest. So if you like skirmish style games, definitely worth checking out. Did I miss anybody? We have so many sponsors, not even funny nowadays. Hang on, this is bugging me. This one screen is just bugging me. Jim's screen is kind of not in the right spot. It's just kind of irking me. But other than that, I think I got everybody. If I didn't, I'm sorry. We'll get you in there. But I think we got everybody. Jim, do you know if we have any shout outs this week?
Me no.
With John not here, he usually handles that, and I'm like, I don't see him. I don't have any that I can think of, so I'm going to say no. Does anybody have any shout-outs of anybody that passed away recently? Need to be seen, talked about, blah, blah, blah. Don't know. I don't know. So if you know anybody, let us know. We will definitely give them a shout-out. Other than that, guys, someone's already mentioned it. Oh, Mini Masterworks. Thank you, Captain Mizzy. Mini Masterworks. Don't forget to check them out. I got a good code for them. More Than Dice MMW10, and you can get 10% off your order. Sorry about that, Mini Masterworks. He will be needing a lot of help. So if you can order from him, that would be appreciated. Just got a call from him about a week ago that he had to cancel all of his conventions this year due to health issues, and so he will be needing all the orders that you can give him. So don't forget to check him out. Yeah, Kathy, he called me up and told me that he had to back out of Warfare Weekend. He had to back out of Reaper and Gen Con and Origins, and just had to back out of everything due to his health going on right now. So check him out on their store. Always get some cool stuff, and you can always get that awesome paint shaker that we always talk about. I think that's about it. Guys, like I said, somebody's already mentioned the heat. It is getting stupid hot outside. Please make sure that you are hydrating, that you are, paint shanker. Make sure you're hydrating. Make sure you're getting out of the heat. Make sure you're taking care of yourself. Too many people I've seen having heat issues. Too many people just not taking care of themselves because they're trying to work hard and get things done. Your job is not worth your health. I don't care what anybody says. So just make sure you take care of yourself, get things situated. I just saw a video where an Amazon delivery guy or whatever collapsed while doing the delivery. So don't be stupid. Take care of yourself. Also take care of yourself because COVID is on the rise again. Of course, we just came off the July 4th weekend, so cases are going up, but there's been not any major hospital stays or major illnesses. But please take care of yourself. Please, please, please. Jim, what are you drinking tonight?
We got ourselves, it's the rum and ginger ale mix. However, this is spiced rum, and it actually goes really good with this cranberry ginger ale right here. So yeah, that's the first time I've had it, and oof, ever since I was like, yep, this is good. Like this a lot.
Tastes like candy.
You darn right, baby.
All right. I am doing the good old Remy Martin XO cognac. Still have a full bottle of that. Still good and great. Still awesome. Guys, like I said, please, please, please take care of yourself. We love everybody. We want you to come back. We want to see you at the next convention, whether it's going to be Gen Con, Warfare Weekend, ReaperCon, or Adepticon. We just want to see you. So please take care of yourself. So everybody out there, cheers. Oh, that's really good. Wait a minute. I think my 30 minutes up is up for my cat ear. So if anybody wants to push that in there, they better do it now or I'm going to take them off. Oh, that's really good. Oh, man. All right. So we're going to be talking about OSL, Object Source Lighting. All right. Making me all spin that. All right. So there's an hour. So the rest of the show, pretty much. No, 30 minutes left in the show. So before we get started, I want to show some pictures of what Jim has been doing. So we're going to switch over to the slideshow. Right here are some of the models. These are your pre-done, just blank canvases that you sent me a picture of. And it's your dwarves that are blank canvases. Got some pictures up.
Yep, just these guys, and all it is just brush on primer. I took a couple of colors of Stynylrez, mixed them together, and just brushed it on.
So
just a few minutes.
I do notice that when we get back to your screen, you do have two different colors of Stynylrez on there. So I want to know why you did that. So let me switch over back to so everybody can see. Actually, let's go to the no. This screen. You've got on the right hand side, you've got gray and a darker tan on one, and then gray and white on another.
I just happened to have those colors, and I mixed them together because for a while we only had certain colors of Stynylrez left because it had been 2 years since I had gotten some new Stynylrez. So I was just basically going through. It's like, okay, if I want to make a brown, I'll have to mix this, and this to make a brown. And these right here, I just happened to be mixing. I think it was some of the oceanic blue, some of the yellow, and some of the white together. It's kind of a neutral light green. The color is irrelevant because with the oils it just gets completely covered. So
Gotcha.
The color doesn't mean anything. It's really more the lightness of it. You want it to kind of be in between, not too light, not too dark. And that's always been the case because if you do black primer, every color you put on there looks too light. And
Yeah.
if you do white primer, guess what? Just the opposite. If you go somewhere in between, and especially with the pre-glaze stuff that we do, it's also important not to have a color that's too dark. Like this is getting to be borderline too dark. It's still okay, but something that's maybe even a lighter greenish gray like this, it's just a bit easier to see your pre-glaze, even though it's all going to get covered. Again, this could be orange, and we could be painting it blue. Ultimately, it doesn't matter because the oils are so opaque and rich, they'll wipe out whatever primer is there as far as the color goes. Don't have to worry about that. So
Okay.
the primer color just kind of happens. I mean, there's times where things have been almost pink, stuff has been almost orange. Oh yeah, here's one of the Armada ships here. I think it has a whole different color to it, but as far as the light and dark of it, it's still about the same as those other ones. It's just kind of in between that very dark and very light, trying to find that happy medium somewhere.
All right. So here's where the pre-models that you're going to be working on. Hey, Danny M. That you're going to be working on and showing us stuff. The next one is you got Medberry Miniatures, which is your dwarves around the forge. I'm going to say, for the people, if you're not watching this, you should watch this. And he's going to bring up, he's going to show the miniatures on screen. No one can see them right now, Jim. But they're going to show them on screen where we got. And this forge is unfucking believable. I don't care what everybody says. That the yellows and the browns and everything looks is just amazing. Hey, Cookie.
That was painted up on stream, so they can go check that out. It's the file itself is from RM Printable Terrain. He did a whole not Moria, not Khazad-dûm theme, so they can go check it out there, and it's really fantastic.
Yeah, I mean this one is. I mean that forge, the fire pit and everything looks amazing. That's just unbelievable. And your next one, which was your Rohan in Flames, and your yellows and your white yellows for the fire and everything. I mean, it's just incredible. I don't care what anybody says. Not only is the OSL amazing, but your flames are amazing too. Which, by the way, I did pick up a set of the golden and Liquitex that you had mentioned on the last time you were on here.
Some of the Elementium, it can be fire, water, thatch, anything.
Yeah. So, all right. So let's go over to the painting stream, where we can see your models in big and in their glory. And while you're working on models, I'm going to work on models, but you're going to watch me because I'm just dry brushing and just getting stuff done, type thing. So, tell us about. Okay, so you got this model right here that you're going to be working on. Oh yeah, this is the Rohan and the dwarfs.
So we got Dunlendings here, Death to the Strawheads, and then we've got our Khazad-dûm dwarves over here. Now, this is two actually different types of object source lighting. This is kind of your typical on-camera light source. Why? Because you can literally see the flames that he's walking over. This, you don't actually see the light source itself. It's kind of that under lighting, right? The whole Moria thing. It's like, where's all this red glow coming from? Don't know. And that's the same deal. You see it a lot on things like busts because where the heck are you actually going to have a light source? So you tip to make busts a little more interesting because they can get kind of flat and boring. People will do this sort of off-camera light source. Now here it just happens to be magenta, but it's the same idea as what I did here. And the idea is just to, well, to me, it's cheating because it takes a fraction of time to paint an army and object source lighting than if you were to paint the entire thing. And here we can have an example, something like this, where, oh, wait a minute, we could paint all of this freehand everywhere, or we have a bunch of light sources on this side, which means we don't have to paint any freehand over there. All we got to do is just make it orangey. So you're sort of taking out half of the miniature, making it as simple as possible, just a bunch of different values of oranges. And then maybe here is where you have all your cool colors, your freehand. So in fact, we're almost cutting this thing in half and having the paint time. Well, at least we're having the freehand time. So it just is something to think about. Time, obviously, for me is important because what I do for a living. But when you only get
Wait,
an
what do you
hour
do
or
for a
two
living,
day,
Jim?
This is what I do. Actually, I paint miniatures, but really what's actually kind of developed is I teach the painting. I mean, obviously the painting and the commission stuff, that's a thing, but doing the Twitch streams, doing the Patreon page videos, the YouTube videos, the live demos, and things like this, where I just kind of go onto a podcast and just sling paint around, trying to spread the joy of painting miniatures quickly and easily and to a higher degree.
That's the
Because
reason why you're called the Bob Ross of miniature painting.
if I can get rid of some of the frustration for folks, they're more likely to paint, right? Because
Oh
if
yeah,
painting is frustrating, your job is frustrating. The kids, the house, everything is frustrating. If your fun thing is frustrating, it will not be your fun thing for very long. You'll find something else to replace it that's more fun. So we try to get out the frustrating and plus up the fun. And I know a lot of people, they're afraid of the object source lighting. What's the phrase we hear so often? I'll ruin it. I'm afraid I'm going to ruin it. And as we get started here, you'll see that if you start with the object source lighting, instead of trying to, well, basically paint an entire miniature like this and say, you know what, I'll just tack on some OSL here. Or if you started with this and then did the rest of the painting around it, a couple of things are going to happen. First of all, if you don't like how this looks, you say, screw it, I'm just going to paint over the darn thing. You got that option. It's very easy. Also, too, you know that why paint this and then paint it all orange again? Because that's what we used to do in the early days.
oh yeah.
And then I said, well, that's kind of, why am I doing that? Why am I painting the same part of the miniature twice? This is stupid. So start here. Then you know, okay, what's the extent of this? Now I can just paint the regular stuff over here. So it's a time saver, and especially if you start with it, then you lose that whole thing of, oh my gosh, I don't want to mess up this miniature I've spent 10 hours painting. Because I always wondered, why are people so afraid? That's why. Because they did all this stuff and then they tried to tack it on afterwards. And then it's understandable why they would be a bit concerned about it. So it's sometimes it's just like a mystery, like what's going on in people's minds that they find it so darn terrifying. And then you talk to more people, say, are you tacking this on at the end? Did they paint the entire miniature? And they said, yeah. And I said, oh, well, there you go. That's why. So I think what we'll maybe try is to start out with the on-camera light sourcing here. Again, this is just the Liquitex Heavy Gel to create actually golden.
I have a question. How long does that usually take to dry when you use it? Because it took mine quite a while.
It will depend on what you're doing and how big this is. So this stuff didn't take very long because these are just little bits of it here. Now, when we did larger batches of it here, say on, this thing, it took us significantly longer because we're doing the waterfalls. We got the water here. This had some depth to it. There was probably about a 1/16 of an inch depth. That took longer to cure. That was at least a day plus for that to fully turn translucent.
Are you letting it dry then doing it, or are you doing like layers when it's a thicker thing, or are you just doing it all at once and just let it sit?
When it comes to something like this, where it's going to be painted over anyway, where's the other one that I did? Oh yeah, this one. This stuff is maybe not 100% cured. It's probably 90% cured because I only did this a few hours ago. But since I'm just going to paint over it, as long as the outside is kind of crusty, doesn't matter. It's when you're doing it for water effects, you're better off just doing it in smaller layers, smaller coats of it. Something like this, not a big deal.
Gotcha.
The Rohan terrain where I was doing the roofs and the thatch, it didn't matter. All I was going to do was paint over it. So I just piled that stuff on. As long as the outer level was crispy, I could paint it, and then the stuff underneath was going to cure on its own anyway. And as long as I didn't smush my finger in it, it was going to be just fine.
Yeah.
So what we'll do here is that little thing that we call the pre-glaze. And all we're doing is we're going to take some of these oil colors over here, usually darker ones, put those on, and then we got our majestic makeup sponges right here. And that's what we're going to do is wipe some of that away. And we know over here, it's going to be basically regular colors like this. And we know on this side, I try to make these as similar to each other as possible. We know we got a boatload of object source lighting on. So it's basically half and half. Half not, half with. So let's start with the half not over here. And I'm just going to take colors like indigo. It's a dark color. but it's also, well, obviously a cooler color. It's also way less saturated. So that orange fluorescent paint, super, super saturated. Now, this is precision brushwork right here that you just don't see on every podcast. Um, as people flee in terror, like, what just happened? What is going on here? Yeah, this is that glorious, messy part that we call the pre-glaze, where all we're going to do is just literally slap this stuff on her. Don't care. I don't care, because eventually that's just most of that
I don't
is going to get
care.
wiped away. Now, what we have to do is let that set for just a second. Let's grab Mr. Dwarf here.
Poor
This
dwarf.
this is going to be a little more of the indigo, and as you can see, that well, not going to be much object source lighting right here. He's got a big old tower shield in front of him. So these are dwarf vault warden teams. This particular figure is from Davale right here. It's a 3D print. So we're doing our indigo there.
Is this model usable in the Middle Earth game?
Yes, this is a Davale, Medbury, Printing Goes Ever On. They all do not Middle Earth strategy battle game miniatures. they're
But
they're
the size of the miniature can be used.
well, the nice thing is it's a 3D print, so you could actually. I mean, I think you've seen the Galadriel versus the Necromancer diorama I
Mm-hmm.
did, where I printed her up at, I don't know, like 200% to be 54 mil,
Oh, is
and
that?
made a diorama out of it.
Yeah.
So that's the sweet thing, is that you can make them any old size. Like
Like
here,
this little thing right here, my little windswept terrain piece. This is actually supposed to be like 13 inches tall.
uh-huh.
And I just shrank it down to do it because I was like, oh, that's a cool looking thing. I wonder if I could shrink it down and still make it look good. And lo and behold, yes, I can.
It's the glory of 3D printing, especially now with the basing bits. That is even more tremendous. So you can see here, even now, this Dunlending is a little less glossy than this one. Ideally, I'm working on, well, dozens and dozens of figures at the same time, but usually more than one. And you can see here, I'm wiping some of it away, but as you can tell, there's still quite a bit left behind. People will do, oh gosh, what is it all the cool kids call it? The zenithal, whatever.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
that's what they call it. Yeah, well, they do that. That's great. And then they proceed to cover it up entirely. This is what I'll call an active zenithal, because this here is all wet. If I start putting lighter colors into this, they mix together. Whereas what they're doing is they're just painting over the top of it till it's gone. Here, we're actually using our pre-glaze, our zenithal, actually to influence the subsequent colors. Now here, I'll start wiping some of this away. Again, you can see that some of that is left behind. These are latex-free makeup sponges. You want to get the latex-free kind because these aren't crumbly. The other kind are very crumbly. They'll get kind of caught on sharp bits. And as you can see, this has been chopped up into several pieces. I used to sit there and do this and not be able to get it in any of the corners, make a big old mess, right? Because there's paint all over the place. Then I realized, yeah, that's kind of stupid. Why don't I just chop them into smaller pieces? And that has been really fabulous, especially the smaller ones, because then I can get into those harder to reach areas. So now, as you can see, this is our non-object source lit area that's set on both of these, the on-camera lighting and then the off-camera. Now we got to start getting to the main event, the object source lighting. These are just craft brushes here. I can get a set of 12 of these at Hobby Lobby. The price has been raised to an astronomical $6 for 12 instead of $5 for 12. This is great because I'll use these eventually when they start getting destroyed and beat up. I'll just start using them for glue and for rough things like what we're doing now. So we're actually taking some red paint. That's a naphthol red. We're taking some of that. And now we're going to start to put in some of our darker object source light color here. There's also a little bit of thinner working its way into this.
I like how your brush strokes are very, very, you know, purposeful, and they're so detailed and so precise for people to understand. Making a joke, he's just slathering the stuff on.
It's whenever I get raided on Twitch and it's the proverbial 70-person raid or something like that, I always want to see how many of them flee in terror or just like try to rip out their eyeballs because they can't watch because it's just too hideous. Because we call it the glorious messy pre-glaze because it is insanely messy. It's very dirty and nasty, but it's very essential. Now
Yeah,
here
I
I
mean,
can
you're
see
just blocking out colors pretty much.
that's all we're trying to do here. And here I can see a couple of areas that maybe don't necessarily get the lighting in, so I can actually hit some of those after the fact here. Nothing is set in stone at all yet. Of course, I mean, you could literally wipe a lot of this stuff away if you just didn't like it, even at this stage. So here, and then we'll just kind of leave him in his gloriously hideous state, and then we'll move on to Mr. Dorf, this guy over here. And obviously we got a lot of stuff here on the base to do. This is the same bulletin board cork that you just got for yourself.
Oh yeah.
Typically, I think, gosh, you have to get it like a 4-pack or something like that.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's about $16, $20 for the 4-pack. That will last you forever, and it can work with terrain. I use that stuff for terrain all the time. So
Yeah, I think I got it on Amazon for about $16 and it came in a 4-pack.
that's about it, and it's amazing stuff. And it's really durable, and the nice thing is you can save all of it. I used to kind of chuck away the little pieces and stuff until I realized it makes excellent rocks. Like the individual pieces that you rip
Oh yeah.
off sometimes will make fantastic rocks. So now I kind of save all of that stuff. Again, used to get rid of some of it. Now I actually save all the little pieces. I have like little Tupperware containers filled with just little pieces of bulletin board cork.
Oh yeah. I have little Ziploc baggies full of bits of things that I've broken off.
Actually, speaking of which, well, also last time I was on, remember this? This is for the Ranger
Oh yeah.
Vanguard. That's just bulletin board cork with some 3D printed bits. All of these are just little scrap bits of the bulletin board cork that normally I would have thrown away. Instead, I kept them and used them as little rock piles. And it just looks, who would have thought that basically a chunk of wood could look so rock-like? But it does. It's weird. It's really weird. Oh, now here we got to get
Night, Danny. Thanks for watching.
some of our light there. So you can see what's already starting to have an effect, right? Just in a matter of seconds here, we already have something that is starting to look, well, at least orangey. Looks vaguely orange there. Back over to this guy. Now, I won't really be wiping away too much of this. I just want to make sure there's not too much paint sitting on here. Not too much paint. Now, sometimes the hardest thing for people to get past is visually this stage, where it just, well, it looks like ass. And
Without saying it, but yeah, it looks like you took a size, 600 brush and just slapped everything on there.
Which is exactly what we done. That's what we did because it's glorious. Now, let's see, we wiped some of that away. We're going to let that set. We'll come back over here to our illustrious dwarf here. Again, take some of the extra off of that. Like so. There. Come back to this guy. Now we can start thinking about actual colors here. Let's take some of our fluorescent orange, maybe a little bit of the fluorescent yellow. And let's start to go a little bit lighter, and then it's going to look a little more like actual object source lighting anyways. Here, let's start to pile this in. Maybe a little more of our yellow. A little more of that yellow. We don't want to get too yellow too quick, though. And as you can see, look at all that darker paint that's on my brush. It's going to start, it happens fast. All of a sudden, next thing you know, a lot of your this or this darker red has already mixed into what you're doing. So here already, that should very quickly start to look like, well, some form of lighting. And that took a few seconds to get to that point. Just a matter of seconds. Now we'll get back to our orange here. And we're just going to start heating this guy up. Again, setting Rohan on fire. Death to the straw heads. Which I'm just assuming The whole point behind that particular pejorative there is they have the horse's mane plumes on their helmets. So unless they're all blonde, I don't know. I don't think everybody in Rohan is blonde haired. Maybe they are. Maybe that's why they call them straw heads. But, look at me being the walk-in Silmarillion, having never actually read the books. But yet I know what the Dunlending swear word for Rohan are. All right, so I would think that some folks, they could see this and say, oh, wait a minute. That's all I have to do? Seriously, this is the big scary object source lighting thing? Not so scary. Not so scary. And the nice thing is there's plenty of acrylic fluorescent paints. This is the same thing I would do with acrylics. Obviously, you don't have quite the same advantage with the wet into wet mixing. Well, I guess it depends on how fast you work. But Golden makes fluorescent paint. Actually, Vallejo made fluorescent acrylic paints too. So you're not just, if you only want to do this in acrylics, do it in acrylics.
Scale 75 has fluorescent colors too.
They do, but they were not magnificent. They were some of the few Scale 75 acrylic colors I ever tried, and I definitely preferred the golden fluorescents. And I know Kathy was using those. They're just way more. They're thinner and they're just a little bit more potent. They don't have quite that thickness to them. The Scale 75 and even the Green Stuff World fluorescents were just kind of weak by comparison, really. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to let that set because we haven't gotten the brightest flame color in here. This is practically almost just a middle tone. Now, the other thing that'll be fun to do, let's get to our film noir here. So let's get him centered up on screen. Take away the color. Now it's just, so this is another thing that you can do, maybe take a picture of it with your phone and then kind of compare it to what your regular lights and darks look like. Because if these highlights are lighter than your fire is going to look a little dingy. It's like, did your fire get dirty or something? It doesn't look quite as light as your lightest highlight. So that's something to think about when you're doing your object source lighting. We'll bring our color back. We'll bring this guy back so we can already see the difference. Just adding a quick couple of brush strokes of lighter orange there. Guess what? Going to do the same to this lad over here. A little bit of that fluorescent, big old filbert brush. And away we go with some lava style underlighting here. The key with the oils is the timing though. If you just keep hammering away at the same piece, piling that paint on there, well, lots of not good things will happen. It'll take forever to dry. It'll be more difficult to get your next paint layers on there. None of them things are stuff you want. So less is more, and more is way too much. That's when you were talking about how you were just going to be dry brushing. I spend most of my time with the oils practically just dry brushing, like this. Light grip on the brush, none of this here, none of this death grip on the brush. Light grip here. Have at it with a little bit of the dry brushy type stuff. None of this is going to be the final colors here. That's not what we're looking to do. We're just looking to sketch this out. Oh, that's the other thing that all the cool kids say. They're sketching. Yes, they're sketching. Me, I'm just dry brushing some light stuff on here. That's, you can tell I'm really big into buzzwords and fancy stuff. That just pinky up. That suits me to a T. Yeah. All right, here's some more of our lighter orange there. I'll get along the side of this tower shield. Like so, and then we'll just let him have a chance to set. Mr. Dunlending comes back around. Another filbert brush, because, oh, wait a minute, we got this non-object source lit side. I want to do some stuff with that. So here we'll get some lighter blue here. Mix that up with the indigo. And by dry brush, that's how dry we're talking. There is very little paint on here. Remember we were talking about that pre-glaze and how it's wet? Shazam. Looked like there was no paint on that brush. Well, there's more than you thought. Otherwise, no way that's happening. So you can see already, there's all this mixing that's happening here, whereas when you do this with acrylics, well, it's going to leave that distinctive texture behind. and it is a very distinctive texture. Not so much with the oils because you're literally putting wet paint on top of wet paint, so you won't have that same effect. We got skin tone and some other colors to do here. Let's get this is our dark green for our Dunlendings here. Again, we'll just start to gently dry brush in a wee smidge of that.
A wee smidge.
A wee
Is that
smidge,
technical and scientific?
it's super technical. It's less than a touch. A smidge is also more than a bit. The thing is that the measurements change constantly, and we reserve the right to change them constantly. So the names stay the same, but the measurement itself is constantly changing. So basically just guess. That's that's what all of those things are. It's kind of like the Cajun chef. And you're just throwing a smidge of this and a pinch of that and a touch of something else.
I'm upset that you didn't go borka 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 and do that.
All right, let's get up some skin tone. Oh, look at this. There's green and Terra Rosa on the brush at the same time. Yay. It's got some skin tone now. Up here, we're going to have to get some of that same darker green right up there. So now the shield starts to look a bit more round.
Hey,
now
Blades.
we have some... Oh, hey, Blades. All right, so let's lighten up that top part of the shield just a smidge, or a touch, or a bit. It's all just guessing, so it's your choice. So you can see now that the shield's got more and more roundness to it. Let's attack this with some more lighter tones here. There's some fur going on here, probably. Got some fur going on here. He's got some stripy pants, because they might be Dunlendings, they might be uncivilized, but yet they can still be posh.
You may need a
They
fire
can still be
extinguisher for
quite
that mini.
posh for Dunlendings.
Thank Painterly Get for the bits. We appreciate it.
Hey, Painterly Get, nice to see you too. We have your Git kit here that was sent to us. Some quickie little stripes right there. Now let's head back on over to our object sourcelet area. Another thing that people kind of sometimes have to learn the hard way with the oils is that you can thin the oils, you cannot dilute them. This brilliant yellow pale here, you could make it 95% thinner, and yet when we put it on here, it's still brilliant yellow pale. Unlike every acrylic color, where it's just going to be like, what's that weird little milky light color you have? So here, there's now we can really start to fire in some actual fiery stuff there. Boom. So that
Blade, thank you for the bits. Appreciate it.
There. And now we can maybe get a little bit less of the lighter color in there and start doing some lighter things here. Of course, metal is going to reflect more light. It's going to be just a bit more sparkly and shiny, more so than cloth. So for sure here, we're probably going to go with more of our lighter color than, say, maybe on the cloth over here. Always something to think about. Get some on the helmet here, and we got the scale mail over here. Maybe a touch there on the metal end of that sword. Let's get some more of our yellowy stuff in here too.
That yellow is very... I'm sure it's kind of bleeding, washing out because of the camera, but it's very white yellow.
It's well, you want the center of your flame, right, to be practically, well, what is flame? It could be blue hot. The hotter it is, the cooler the color. So when I did the Balrog, actually some of the very first colors I put on it was a bluish white in the hottest areas. Then is that the further you get away from it, that's why like a red supergiant is actually much cooler than, well, a blue supergiant. Those are the ones that burn really hot and just go boom, like after 100,000 years. Because they are smoking hot, but yet they're a cool color. So here, the closer we are to the flames, the more of the yellow-ish orange we're going to get. And you can see we've spent almost no time over here. We've spent most of our time developing this over here, and it didn't take very long, did it? This is
no,
that's what, in a hurry.
That's the reason why I have never used oils. I do want to try. I've got plenty of unpainted miniatures that I could do that with. But if I were to buy a set of oil paints, and I just want to buy a set just so I can test out to see if I want to do it, what set do you really think it should be a good, test out?
There's a few that you can get now. This is only the 6-color one, but the Winton color, it's from Winsor Newton. That's basically, again, the student grade version of the paints I use all the time. You could get the 10-color set for about, say, 24, 26 bucks on Amazon, or you walk over to Michael's with a 40% off coupon and get it for even less. Gamlin also has a color set. I think it's 9 colors. They're pretty much the same, because I've asked other folks that have gotten those. They say, yeah, they're about the same as the Wintons. Now, if you do want to try and kind of go towards the genuine artist oils from the get-go, Williamsburg does sell starter sets. It's not like student grade color. It's the real deal, just in very small tubes. Well, guess what? You don't need giant tubes, really, especially if you're just getting started. I would suggest getting them off of Dick Blick, because there's always some kind of sale going on. Dick Blick, I think now they have free shipping, 45 bucks or more. You could potentially get 10 Dick Blick colors for between $39, $40. That's pretty darn good when you're talking about some of the best oil paints out there. And they have several different starter sets. I think I usually tend to choose the Modern Colors starter set. It just has some of the colors that we use. You don't have to get that one necessarily, but that's not a bad way if you want to get like the real deal, but yet not have to pay for 10 full-on tubes of oil paints. That is another option. I think other companies also have starter sets. You could kind of research those. The main thing is, just don't go somewhere and get, Jerry's Oilorama 50 tubes for $3. That's
What?
basically what you could do is just take the oil out of there and melt down the metal. You have like the metal tubes. You get more money for the metal tubes. So yeah, definitely don't get the super, super cheap stuff. That's just not going to end well for you, unfortunately. And I always try to tell people that, and sometimes they'll just, oh, hey, look at this. And it's got like 200 tubes of paint in it. And I'll say, did that cost you about 15 bucks? And they'll say, yeah, man. And I say, well, that and 15 bucks would have gotten you 15 bucks. So yeah, you might want to try to get yourself some regular stuff. You'll be a little bit less disappointed. And of course, you could start with just a very simple miniature, very limited color scheme. This was my classroom miniature at Adepticon this year, and this is all they had to work with were these 6 colors. This is it. And those 10 people created 10 massively different versions. Some of them had green dresses, some of them had purple dresses. I mean, it was amazing. Different skin tones, different hair colors, just using these very simple 6 colors right here. So you don't need a whole ton of colors when you're first starting out with the oils. Keep it simple. Keep it simple. And you can already see, again, we're already getting into pretty much where we were here. Now maybe we can start to develop the other side in a bit. We want this stuff to have a chance to set. We don't want to take that too far. We want to see what our ambient light is also going to look like here. Now I'm looking here. This is pretty much blocking any light from touching that. This, though, can still see some hitting it over there. So there we go. And maybe a smidge more over there on the helmet, and then we'll just sort of leave this be for a bit now. Get over here. Start working on some of the non-object source lit stuff. And of course the key is all the orangey stuff here. You can see a dingy green. Here, let's get to some metal colors here. Maybe this, some of the indigo here. And start to maybe find some lighter colors on these metals. Same thing with his axe up here. There we go. And you can see we're not layering. Some of these colors were dramatically lighter or darker than what was already there, because you have wet paint there to work with. I know that I'll see it sometimes. People say, man, it took 100 years for this thing to dry. And I'll say, well, did you do a bunch of layers? Did you do a base coat like you would with acrylics? And they said, yeah. And I said, well, there you go. You just you don't want to be doing that type of a base coat type thing. And it's hard because it's instinct, right? That's what you've done your entire painting life. Well, now you don't need to bother with that. You can save that precious time. Now you can see why doing an entire army of these guys, and it's not just a viable thing, it's almost, I'm telling you, my Moria goblins, the Balrog, all the goblins, all were done with that same type of color scheme. Where's my, well, here they are. So this is the Warg Marauders from, again, part of the Moria army. So instead of having to paint all of these different greens and browns and everything else, this whole side of the warg and the three gobos was just orange. Saved myself a heaping ton of time. And it's not just for fantasy stuff. Sister of Battle, same way. Got the gold armor here. Lots of that, the flamey skull there reflecting onto her armor. So it doesn't matter what the genre is. Doesn't matter what the color is. Magenta, green, purple. I've done every color of object source lighting. Some are easier than others. Probably the easiest is the orange, the firelight. I would say purple is probably the most difficult. Green, not too bad. Blue can also be a little bit tricksy, and we did this one on stream as well, because blue is just by itself is not necessarily the most bright color. You know, orange, your brain just associates orange with something bright and fiery. It doesn't usually see blue as a light source. Green, sometimes-ish, maybe. So that's another thing to keep in mind. I guess, too, when it comes to making object source lighting, when the guy is maybe wearing a white robe, I think you ever heard me use the term object source shading? That's where people say, well, the light source is blue, but they're wearing a white cloak. So the cloak is white, and then the light source is like this weird dark blue color. And you're wondering, so why is the light source darker than what he's wearing? I think we did that, well, here with this Gandalf right here. So there's a little bit of glow here. You can see it very easily on his hat. Not so much here because that robe is not terribly dark, is it? But go into a darkened room, wear a white t-shirt, shine a flashlight on yourself. Guess what? Your white t-shirt, it's not so white anymore. So just a little something to keep in mind, that just because they're wearing something that's light, it doesn't mean that the light source is not going to be creating a ton of shadows on that. So just something you might want to keep in mind. Let me just grab another little one of my filberts here. Now, here's another thing that's always fun is casting some shadows. I think we did it here. So again, flamey light source there. You can see the light source comes through the legs here and shines down the rest of the base. I think we can sneak some of that in on this right here. So it's going to come through here just a smidge. Now, where's my orange here? Just grab some of this and have some of that kind of leach its way through. Not everywhere, because here we would probably be casting some kind of a shadow. Now, there's those little, oh gosh, do I have any of them here? No. Those tiny little flashlights, I think I told you about those.
Oh,
They
yeah.
come in a few different colors, red, green, blue. You could literally shine those on the miniature, and that could kind of give you a bit of a hint as to where the light might actually be hitting the figure. So that's something to think about, too, as a little bit of a guide. Heck, I think phone cameras have little lights on them now. You could practically just shine your phone camera light at the miniature and do something similar. Now here I can see I need to get some orange into there. What do we have on the brush? Not orange. We're going to go and get some of that. That's the scale mail. We need to make sure that is light enough. Here, get me that fluorescent orange here. His belt probably. And then all of these little pieces of scale mail. This is a really old figure. I'm pretty sure that these metal Dunlendings came out in 2005. So needless to say, they're not the crispest cast in the world, which can make that a little bit more challenging. Still, I would have to say that most of the Lord of the Rings range is still potentially metal, depending on what kind of army that you're doing. Now there's more and more Forge World stuff. All the new Easterling stuff has all been Forge World. And actually, we've got ourselves. Oh, here we go. So there's one of our Easterlings, Flamey Skulls. Oh, look. All the gold, all the blue here, you turn it around, poof, object source lighting. Sometimes where you place your object source light can really raise the drama of it or make it really boring. We've got multiple light sources. So here's Aragorn, Strider, whatever. At a certain point, though, sometimes you have to just kind of not go too crazy with the object source lighting. Otherwise, he'd all just be orange. I mean, he would literally just be looking like he's been nuclear blasted or something. So sometimes you just gotta back away from the lighting just a bit. All right, so hopefully we can see this on camera here. I know it's a little bit difficult with that shield being in the way, but I think now we're pretty well set on all the sneaky cheeky orange light in here. Now let's see, I'm looking, it says 7:53, so we've really only been painting this for what, a half an hour-ish, 35 minutes tops.
And it looks better than 90% of the stuff I've ever painted in my entire life.
But object source lighting though, right? I basically didn't have to paint this half. All I had to do was just like, okay, it's close to the fire. I'll slap some lighter orange on there. It's almost like no-brainer stuff here. This, you kind of have to think a little bit more. Okay, what am I doing? Bluish grays here. I got skin tone over here. This right here is just whatever, right? Doesn't matter. Paint it whatever. Now, I might go back in there with some darker reds, I think. But those are the kind of things that you can just sort of reassess. Now, here, what I've been doing with my Dunlendings is actually making some firelight on the horizon line on their helmets. So like they've been setting things on fire like, oh, I don't know, Rohan. Because straw burns really good and horses have lots of hay around them. So it's a very flammable society. Also, I'll never forget the guy that does the historical stuff, talks about castles and such. And he's going over the stuff for obviously Lord of the Rings, and he says, so why in the world are these guys using wooden walls? Like, have they not developed how to like put one rock on top of another rock? What do they think those wooden walls are really going to do? Are they going to stop a Muma kill or something like that? I guess we'll find out in 2024 with the War of the Rohirrim movie. I really wish that were coming out sooner. And I'm sure there'll be Dunlendings. Well, there will be, because Helm Hammerhand is going to be featured very strongly. Now, what are we doing here? A little bit of a horizon line. See that darker horizon line? Up here, we're going to get some blue. Up here, we got no edge. Remember we were talking before about just slapping some paint on there? Getting another brush. And doing something like this. All I did was tap, tap, tap. We just soften that whole edge in a second. Now over here, you can see we got some brush strokes happening here. Well, how's about we make those go away? All I had to do was just tap, tap, tap. Same thing over here. I'll have people ask me, so can I put oils through an airbrush? My first answer is, for God's sakes, no. Second answer is, why, when you can do what we're doing here, right? I mean, that is so much easier than fooling around with an airbrush. No masking is necessary, no airbrush filters or any of that kind of stuff. Why do we want to deal with all that extra hassle when we could just do it the easy way? Now here we're actually going to be able to make even more dramatic firelight by making a shadow here. Let's get a little bit more of that naphthol red. Another shadow over here. Poof. You must have dark to show the light. No, I'm I know it was Bill Alexander that said that, but I'm pretty sure Bob Ross probably continued that expression too. You can make stuff as light as you want. As once you've gone to white, you've got nowhere else to go. So you might as well just make things darker, and that's what we're doing here. So by increasing the darks, boom. We haven't touched it with any more lighter color. Didn't have to. We just said, let's just let those darks take over. More shadow over here, I think. Oh, these brushes right here, these liner brushes, I think Cotman is pretty much about the same. They're just regular synthetic brushes. Should be about $5-ish bucks on Dick Blick or Jerry's Artorama or Michael's or whatever. They are not super expensive brushes. Gave up on the Sable stuff a long time ago. The quality control on those just went south really fast. And then I don't even know if you can get those, especially now with the current state of Europe and where Sable comes from, at least Kolinsky Sable. I'm not even sure if you can get that stuff anymore. So we're just using regular old, not Sable brushes. Oh, I just use this here again. Soften that up. Nice and easy. Got some cuts in the shield here. Might even still try to get a little more light color on the top of that shield, but the boss, that also needs to be a little lighter here. Prussian blue. Right there on the top of the boss, and then get a little bit lighter here. Again, the ambient light, we don't want that to be lighter than the firelight. It could be a little bit of a tricky balance, but...
Uh-oh. Oh, no, I'm all by myself. Oh, there you go. Whew. I have a heart attack, Jim. You left me alone.
What?
You froze up for a second.
All right, here, let's keep going with our lights there. Boom. Maybe some lights over here on the fur. Oh, we need a whole bunch of darks over there. Okay. All right. Well, good to know. I'm just gonna take this brush right here. Maybe not that one. Maybe we'll use this one. Yeah. Van Dyke Brown. Poof. Okay, that's better. Now we also need some darks up here too, because the firelight really shouldn't be going all the way up there. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So we'll get rid of some of that firelight. Take some of that away. Hopefully you're making good progress on all your dry brushy stuff over there.
I got it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 26 of them done.
That's what you want to be hearing, because I get sorry that we can't join you for Warfare Weekend, but maybe we can try and do some sort of virtual painting thing or something like that for folks that are hanging out there. And I know that you've been working really hard, working on a convention like that. That's a year-round type of thing.
Yeah, well, I've got everything's ready. So our ticket sales are going on sale on Saturday, and I already have people saying, "Hey, I can't make it. Can I buy a VIG and have someone pick it up there?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you just gotta let me know who's going to be picking it up and provide the information." But for the most part, yeah. Because it seems like some people just want to buy the VIG so they can get the swag bags.
That's always a big thing in Adepticon. I remember the early days of years ago where it just first come, first serve. If you showed up early, and at first it was people would show up maybe Friday afternoon. Then all of a sudden they're showing up Thursday afternoon. And I swear that convention is going to start like the previous weekend or something. It practically, there's stuff on Wednesday now, I think.
Yeah, we actually started something on Thursday now. Some people asked about if they could do Thursday paint classes, Thursday night, and I'm like, well, we have those rooms available. At 7 o'clock at night. I mean, we let people, pick up their badges, 7 or 8 o'clock at night on Thursday, and so everybody's like, "Can we do classes on Thursday night?" I'm like, "I don't see why not." And so, I mean, we don't do any tournaments or any, tabletop stuff because we're setting up the convention, but we definitely allow painters to come in and do that type of stuff.
That, well, yeah, and of course, sometimes even if it just, now, is there like an open paint area? I guess that's
We do have a AKA Fort Wappel area now. And I would say that one of the cool things besides having an official, hobby room, because it can be locked up and everything, the one of our sponsors is providing a whole rack of paint, so pretty much like 10 or whatever of every color of paint they have. And the paint company is Duncan Road's Two Thin Coats paint line. They gave us an entire rack of paint for our hobby lounge. One set of paint for each of our classrooms, so 3 sets of paints there. And then a set of paint for our paint and take area / speed painting competition.
Have you had a chance to mess with that stuff at all and see if you like it or not?
Yes, I have. I like it. One thing that I've noticed, I got to test it out and everything, was their paint is a little bit thick, but I would rather have thicker paint than thinner paint. But it's not. I mean, we thin down our paints anyway. So for the most part, because they are acrylics, they're not oils or anything. So I mean, there's no issues with it. But I kind of asked them. I was like, why did y'all decide to go with a thicker instead of a thinner? And the thing is it's not any thicker than anybody else's. You just, once you've been using paint for a while, you kind of get that feel. And they were like, well, we want you to be able to thin it to the consistency you want instead of having a thin paint and either trying to bulk it up or, just not buying it because it's too thin.
That's what we've been talking about with the oils. And for example, things like the Scale 75 oils that they have thinned down already with all that extra linseed oil. And what would de-add? Yes, you can add it very easily. De-adding it is very hard. You can't put less linseed oil in something that's already got a ton of it. So that's a kind of a frustration that I have. And it's not just miniature paints. There's other regular artist oils. They do the same thing. They just chock them full of linseed oil. And I can understand it out of the tube. It does feel really soft and smooth, and it seems like that would be easier. Ultimately, it can kind of make things more difficult.
Yeah,
especially
but I mean,
when it comes to miniatures.
Like I said, and they're good paints. And they're a little bit thicker than normal, but I would rather have a thicker paint than a thinner paint, in my opinion. That way I can thin it down to the consistency I want. So people will have, and they'll be there as a vendor to sell their entire paint line too. Captain Mizzy, I'm pretty sure the hotel's going to let us set up as early as we can on Thursday, because that was so much easier. But I haven't had a chance, so they'll be there to sell their paint line. They'll be there you can test it out in the hobby lounge. You can test it out in every one of your classes. In the 3 hobby classrooms we have, and also in our paint and take area, you can use it there. So everybody have a chance to test it out before they buy it, which would be cool. And it also helps our painters, because then our painters don't have to fly with paints. And that's always a big pain in the butt. So they could bring just a few paints. Like if they're doing certain class that has a certain paint that they don't have, of course they're going to bring it. But if you just need basic colors and stuff, you've got that whole thing right there. So everybody's going to get a chance to use them and buy them. It'll be kind of neat. I can't wait to have that hobby lounge all decked out, because we actually spoke with our unofficial official hobby group, and set up the classroom. It's kind of like what y'all have. Um, it's blocked off, so everybody's there, but it's set in a big, not a horseshoe, but two big L's next to each other, kind of like this, where everybody can sit around. But it's like these two. It's like this long rectangle. So it'll be interesting. They've been asking for it for quite a few years, and we couldn't justify it because it's, even though while they're there and they are paying a ticket, you get more from people that buy other type of tickets.
Mm-hmm.
And our badges, I should say. But they are donating supplies and donating material, and I was like, okay, you're cutting my costs, which makes it even better. And they're a really great group of people that are the people that are doing it. They actually donated. One of the people donated a whole brand new computer to the convention so we could do streaming. And then they're buying lights for the classrooms, little tabletop lights to put in the classroom, which we're desperately needing, and they're so expensive. It's like $500 to $800 just for like 40 lights, because everybody's kind of picky on their lights, but they see the benefit of it, and so we go with it, and everything's hunky dory. Really good. I know, man, we've got so many painters this year and so many classes. Not even funny. Rainer 72 is going to be there, and Pending Duff is going to be there teaching. These are all of our teachers. Of course, Metalhead Minis. Epic Duck is going to be there. He's going to be doing a lot of comic style painting. Who else? Captain Madlove is going to be doing some painting. Man. Clay Williams is going to be doing some painting. Danny Samuels is going to be doing some crafting items and such. So we've got quite a few painter artists doing some cool stuff. So I can't wait for it. It's always a good thing. And our painting badges are much cheaper than the regular badge. One of the things that we did last year, and it turned out to be a really big success. Thanks, Captain Busy, for the link. Was you can buy the weekend badge and let you play in every tournament, every event, buy tickets to the thing. But a lot of our painters is like, we don't want to play in the tournaments. We don't want to do this. We just want to take a bunch of hobby classes and hang out in the hobby lounge. And I'm like, okay, so we're like, you got to buy a $35 badge, and it lets you partake in all the free goodies and contests and the painting competition, but it doesn't let you participate in any tournaments, and it lets you buy classes. So instead of dishing out $75 and then buying 2 classes, you get to buy a $35 badge and take 4 classes because it's a little bit cheaper on the pocketbook type thing. So that was one of the things, because we don't offer a day pass. We only offer full weekends. It's too much of a hassle to do that, especially when we have some tournaments that last 2 days, and setting up a system going, you can't buy this, you can't play in this tournament because this tournament is only for Saturday and Sunday, and you bought a Friday and Saturday badge. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like one badge and you get to play everything. So much cheaper too on the pocketbook. $75, play everything, or some events are $50 and then $20 for one tournament.
There wouldn't happen to be it's probably not a Middle Earth tournament there. I just saw, actually, that was a local game store here. They were doing a Lord of the Rings tournament just, I guess, this last weekend or something.
Man.
And usually, I'm always thinking that's Australia. Australia is like the hotbed for the big tournament scene where you'll have 120 players show up or something like that.
Yeah.
I know there's a couple of conventions here in the U.S. I know Adepticon has a small Lord of the Rings tournament. Unfortunately, when I'm doing conventions, tournaments are out because I'm always doing the miniature painting stuff.
What? No, not you.
Yeah, so maybe like a couple of years ago, this was the year before the pandemic stuff. There were people that wanted me to sneak me into the bolt action tournament at Adepticon. I said, look, that just ain't gonna happen. Tournaments they're an all day type of a thing.
Yeah.
There's just no way to combo that, unfortunately.
Well, let's go ahead and get over to our media sections while Jim kind of does some more touching up and detailing on his miniature. And we will talk about media. Da-da-da-da-da-da. So, Jim, you and I have one together that we can go ahead and talk about. And of course, we're still going to do spoiler free because not everybody's seen it. This last weekend was the finale of The Boys. And while I really, really like The Boys and I think the show is really good, they, to me, seems like it needs to start wrapping up. Like next season or maybe 2 seasons, and I think after that it's going to start like jumping the shark, in the proverbial words, that they need to, finish up the story, and get to the fucking monkey, basically. I really enjoyed this episode. There was some good character development. The people were very happy with everything. You're kind of right, Mo. It was more like it's like they're setting the stage for the next season. It was an entire season dedicated to setting the stage for next season. Was it bad? No. Was it their best? Not really. But I'm ready. I'm ready for the story. I'm not saying ready for the story to be over with, but ready for them to get to the story and get to the finale, because I can see if they keep on going with this, it's just going to take forever to get done, and then it's just going to be like, oh, another season of The Boys came out. Yeah, Xander, I agree with you. I think 2 seasons and we're done, which I'm okay with. I don't have a problem with that whatsoever. There's nothing wrong with that. So what did you think about this episode, or this episode/season?
Actually, well, in some ways, the episode, it kind of had the same frustration level as the rest of the season, where you would say, wow, that's pretty, oh my gosh, what they just do. Again, it was kind of like you're eating some delicious Moose Tracks ice cream or something like that, and you got those little chocolate bits in there. It's like, wait a minute, who put a little turd in here? It's like, does that taste like a turd? Yeah, they snuck a little turd in here. And they've been kind of doing that all season, where sometimes there would be some weird, frivolous kind of thing, or maybe a little bit more of an awkward thing in the middle of something that was pretty darn good. And also, I was thinking, this is the end of the whole thing. I was like, there can't be any more seasons after this. You're already kind of pushing the limit of stories, because it's going to run into like that one season of The Expanse where it was a 10 episode season with like an episode and a half of actual story, yet they just stretched it out for 10 episodes. And I was kind of hoping it would be more like the last season of The Expanse, where only 6 episodes and they told more story than the previous 2 seasons combined. And I'm just worried that it's like, oh guys, look, you've kind of gone as far as you can with this. And I was kind of hoping that would just be the end of it. It was weird because you would like it to, in a way, continue, because I don't watch very many shows at all. But then I also was kind of hoping, well, maybe this is the end of it. They're not going to drag this out and just kind of, well, like you say, jump the shark multiple times. And that's kind of my concern, is that might start happening. It's like, where else can they go? You could see all the setup that was happening. I was really dreading that, oh my gosh, there's going to be a whole nother season of this. I just can't. There's a little bit of whiny factor that happens, and I can only. That was what season 5 of The Expanse was, just hour after hour of whining, and it was really getting on my nerves. And I was just kind of hoping this would not go in that direction, because it kind of had that little bit of what would you say? It was a little irreverence. It's been a while since I've seen anything that had irreverence to it. And it seemed like sometimes they were willing to keep going with that, and other times they sort of sidestepped it. I was like, wait a minute, why are you suddenly sidestepping an opportunity for irreverence here? And it was like, what's going on with that? So it's a little bit on the frustrating side. It was this season was definitely better than the last one, no doubt. I think most people are pretty much thinking that this season was better than the season 2.
Yeah, I like this, and I think that they're going to be getting to the end. This was like a pure setup for the entire series ending, in my opinion, which I'm okay with. But yeah, there was like, okay, yeah, yep, okay, cool, 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 and then you're like, yep, just like ready to get it done. Let's get finale to the season, in my opinion, or the series for the better part. There was a few good scenes, nothing outrageous in those, but there definitely was some scenes that were like, holy fuck, I can't believe that they did that. It was just crazy, crazy shit. And they even say this, it's like nobody should be really watching this because there's no need to. But it was enjoyable. Like I said, I'm ready for the next season and the eventual, ending to the series because you can only go so far with this before it is. But with that said, we also have the spinoff coming, which is going to be University V, which is going to be pretty much college, the boys in a way. We don't know. I don't know all the full details, but there's a spinoff called University V, and I'm guessing it's about college superheroes. So don't know where that's going to go. We'll just have to wait and see. I wanted to do one before we do our other one that we had together. I started. So I saw an ad saying that season 3 of Harley Quinn on HBO Max was coming out. I was like, man, I need to finish that. I only started season 1 and watched a few episodes on HBO Max. It is a cartoon. And I really, really, really enjoyed this. It is pretty much the same thing as, what you would think. Very inappropriate type stuff, but very funny. Very, slapstick, very in your face type comedy. I mean, it isn't Harley Quinn based on the way she's portrayed now. In the movies and TV shows. And it's like Harley Quinn, her group of bad guys, Poison Ivy. There are a few episodes about Batman in there and Commissioner Gordon. But for the most part, it's the Harley Quinn show. And it's pretty good. I was really impressed. They do some in-the-face stuff that just, you're like, holy shit. Did they really just... Yep, it's a giant vagina. Yep. Mm-hmm. Okay. Type thing. But I mean, well worth it. Well fun. Ready to see what they do in season 3. I enjoyed it a lot. I would give season 1 and season 2 probably like 1.5 space herpes. Because there was a couple episodes that were just kind of like, eh. But for the most part, it was very enjoyable and very fun. Jim, do you want to talk about the other one we have in common? Or do you want to go with something you saw yourself?
Let's go with the Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power.
Dude, I'm going to tell you right now, yes, it's going to be a TV show, but I can't fucking wait for this. It looks gorgeous. I mean, the characters, I don't know who everybody is right off the top of my head, but I'm looking forward to it. It looks very epic, very, everything going on. I'm all for it.
This is really unique for me because, like when Lord of the Rings first hit the screen, I never heard of it before. So anything they put in front of me was brand new. I had no preconceived ideas. Same thing with The Boys. I had no idea what it was until I started watching it. I didn't even know it was a comic book. I had no clue until the 3rd season. Like, oh, this was a comic book?
Yep.
Loki was another one. I had no idea what or who Loki was. The Mandalorian was the same way. I was just so ignorant of any of the backstory. This is so different because I have suddenly turned into the walking Silmarillion. And as I see this, just all kinds of the typical 1967 Star Trek red alert klaxon is blaring off, going, "Oh my gosh, why are they doing this? They didn't have to do this." I mean, I can sort of understand why there's certain things they're doing. Just like, there was no Prince Imrahil at Minas Tirith. They just basically gave all that stuff to Gandalf. Understandable for the movie. It's different medium, so you have to do different things. There's some alarm bells here. But like we talked about earlier, my biggest fear is actually that it's just like how TV shows. There's what's the other one? Like Stranger Things. You see, like a lot of things is like Stranger Things got good again.
Hmm.
There were people that were giving up on that show, and all of a sudden it's good again. I don't know if this show can survive that, where it's not so great, and then maybe they kind of catch they kind of catch their wind or something like that, and then it gets better. I don't know if it'll be too tainted by then.
I hope not. I mean, because we, this is a young Gladriel. Everybody's young. This is a very, very, long, 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 long time ago. But I
It's
mean,
Warrior Princess Galadriel.
yeah.
There she is.
So it's going to be very interesting. I think people are going to have to like step aside and go, okay, this is not Lord of the Rings. This is, these old characters. We all know where it's going to end eventually, but we don't know the story of how it got there or the minutia behind it. I guess you could say the more detailed information, and I'm looking forward to it. It's not coming for another year, but what they've shown.
No, it's coming September 2nd.
Oh, is it September 2nd?
This September, the
Oh yeah, that's
anniversary
right.
of
That's right.
Tolkien's death, I guess.
Yeah.
Now,
That's
what
right.
they did is they've done a massive time compression because they're combining like Fall of Numenor. Galadriel was never on Numenor ever. So there's a whole bunch of things, and of course the Harfoots. Like there were no hobbits. I can understand they want to have hobbits because that's what everyone, the general populace associates with Lord of the Rings as hobbits. And there's a little bit of, oh, gosh, did you have to put those guys in when there's so many other like I would have liked to see more of like how did the Easterlings come about?
Yeah.
Let's go to Middle Earth. Let's see what Harad was like. Let's see what Umbar was like before it was all tainted and evil and such. And it could have there was just room for so many different cultures instead of just be like, oh, well, we're stuck with Numenor now.
Well, and we don't know. I mean, for right now, that could be what we're doing, and they eventually get to other parts. That's what I'm saying. I hope that they flesh out the world a bit more, and we see more of the characters, and we see more of the races, and we see more of the world. We just got to wait. We know where the premise is, and what is going to start out. It's just what else are we going to see?
I just wish that I could claim the ignorance like I can claim on every single other show. Like, hey, this is really cool. And all the other people are like, this sucks, man. This is wrong and this is wrong. And I'm just like, whatever.
Yeah.
Don't know. So this is the one time I've lost that ability to just go, all right, whatever they put in front of me, I can just judge it on that. Like with the boys, I could just judge it as a TV show as opposed to any kind of faithfulness to the source material or anything.
Yeah.
So it's going to be really weird for me. A very first time ever for me.
It'll be interesting because I mean, they haven't said that it's a limited series, so we don't know how long it's going to go for.
It's 5 years.
Oh, is it? Did they say it was going to be a 5 season
Yep.
series? Okay. I haven't heard that.
Yep, it's a 5-year arc, and that's why people were a little bit concerned because they said, wait a minute, instead of that they're covering like thousands of years in a matter of episodes. So that it's kind of worrisome about story or character development when you're fast forwarding. That's
Hopefully
much
they
through the
only do
story.
fast forwarding like between seasons. You know what I'm saying? Like season 1 and then like season 2, like 100 years pass. Because the elves, of course, 100 years doesn't mean jack or crap. So hopefully we'll get something of that nature.
Because I
If
think
they do that.
at that time, Numenorians live about 230 to 350 years, but then you got the middlemen, and even those guys, they only live. I mean, if they're living to 100, that's a miracle.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it goes. Obviously, I really just hope that it's at least competent, just because I just don't want the whole Game of Thrones thing, where all of a sudden nobody was interested in that. I mean, I never saw it at all. but it seemed like people really just tanked all interest for it by what happened with that final season.
Oh yeah.
And I just wouldn't want a new generation of potential fans of it to be turned off by something, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, we'll have to wait and see. Hopefully they do it really well. Like I said, I enjoyed what I saw, and I liked what I saw. Special effects wise, didn't bother me one bit. Costumes and all that didn't bother me one bit. Now, if they get the story and the writing down, okay. And hopefully it'll be good, because I was really disappointed in the Wheel of Time series, because that was supposed to be, the new Lord of the Rings, type thing, and it was pretty bad comparatively.
That's what everybody says, and that kind of has me concerned.
Yeah. So I'm hoping. I wanted to give one last one, because we only got about 3 minutes left. So I started watching, it's on Netflix, the Resident Evil TV show. Now, Resident Evil, based off, of course, the video game and blah, 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 and they're making it into a TV show. And it's kind of there's a bunch of flashbacks type thing. And I've gotten through like 2 episodes and part of a third. And this is bad. This is just not a good TV show. I don't even know if I can finish it. I went on to check because I don't know the whole minutia and, history behind Resident Evil, just, based on video game and, movie and just a little bit of that stuff. But I was sitting there and I was like, I'm going to, see what it is. And this is being tanked all over the place. People are just like, this sucks. And I mean, everybody is talking about how bad this is. Viewer reviews are really, really bad. But like some of the critics' reviews were like, to a good. And like people that have actually, like you and I watched it, they're like, no, this sucks. And I'm just like, man, that's too bad. Because, I mean, it's a cool premise. You can do some cool stuff with it. But it definitely, Mo's like, yeah, it's horrible. It's just not good at all. There's not much on TV for me right now. I'm still watching, what is it? The space show. Dang it. For Mankind. I didn't get to watch this week's episode, but I'm still watching that. So I'm looking for new stuff to watch. And there's not a lot of new stuff coming out. I kind of binge watched all of The Bear, which, I kind of dread binge watching it all, but I really, really liked it. And it got renewed for another season. So I was like, fuck yeah. So if you have Hulu, highly recommend watching it. It is amazing. One of the best new shows I've seen in a long time. But I do not recommend Resident Evil unless you're like a hardcore fan and you just need some stupid TV, but there's better stuff out there to watch. I'll give you better recommendations. So, but I mean, other than that, let me see if we got some people we can raid. I haven't even checked our raids and see what we've got out there. Guys, we appreciate everybody coming out here. We got Ricky is not a ferret out there. Oop, didn't mute myself. We have Ricky is not a ferret is going to be there. We're going to send him out to y'all when we're done. But Jim, as always, thank you for coming on. Thank you for showing your amazing paint job. I mean, that thing, I could never have done that in a million years in the time frame, because it's pretty much been like an hour and a half. And that is like balls amazing.
Well, thanks for having me on. And like you can see, kind of that was our start phase, about 2 minutes in, and then we just develop it as much as we need to, or as little.
Yep.
Depends on how much time you've got for each miniature.
Yeah, that's just crazy. Next week we'll have a different guest on, or whatever. And in 2 weeks we'll have Jim back on. And he's going to talk about freehanding on models and giving some cool little designs. And he'll have some stuff ready for us and talk to us about how to get that done, which I think is always, that one's really, really hard for me, is freehanding type stuff. So, guys, we really, really appreciate everybody coming on, people listening, watching, all that type of stuff. Please take care of yourself. Please, please, please hydrate. Look after each other. If you see something, say something. And for More Than Dice, I'm Gonzo.
For some reason, I'm still not Kathy.
Good night. Stick around if you haven't. You can find out Ricky is not a ferret. I think he's playing some video games, and he's a good friend of ours. Just go over there and give a like and say hi to him.